it's Outkick. We can pretty much tell the truth. You worked at ESPN. I worked at ESPN. The one thing that I've seen at ESPN, and I know at ESPN, is that employees of African American get treated way better, have way more leeway than employees of white, whether it's to be speaking out political, speaking racial. And, of course, Stephen A. Smith says that, Pat McAfee gets away with things because he's white. Total crap. Am I wrong, Danny Z? You worked there a long time, but I know I'm not wrong. How about that?
You're not wrong. I'll actually tell you a personal story if you'd like to hear it. Part of what led to my eventual departure from ESPN was, you remember the whole Bubba Wallace thing with the noose in the garage and all that? I was working at ESPN at that point, and when it came out that, of course, that there wasn't a noose, it was just a garage rope, like most people might have expected, I sent out a fairly harmless tweet while I was working that said, I expect apologies to be flooding this website at any moment, right? Pretty harmless. A coworker of mine, this was during COVID too, by the way, when ESPN was all about COVID and masks and not, getting into people's space. A coworker of mine, African American, busted into my control room where I was sitting by myself, starts screaming at me, F-bombing me, tells me he wants to fight me, just yelling, screaming, going absolutely berserk. And I sat there calmly and I said, I'd like you to please leave my control room. I'm not trying to get into a physical altercation at work. So this happens. I alert my supervisor. I'm like, hey, just so you know, I was sitting in the control room by myself and this guy busts in, he's screaming at me, cussing me up and down. Okay. So we get a setup meeting with HR. They ask me why I felt the need to tweet what I tweeted. Basically, he got in zero trouble. They turned it on me and said it was my fault, that I started it by sending a harmless tweet that really, first of all, could have meant anything, by the way. And again, like I said, broke all the COVID rules, F-bombing a coworker in a control room. I mean, Dan, that was the moment when I was like, I have to get out of here. Like, we're living in the upside down time. This guy comes into my room threatening to fight me, and I'm the one who did something wrong? Get out of here.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, everybody knows. And, I've said this, and I just said this, and I'm glad you told that story because I said it earlier. People think ESPN is what you see on TV. It's not. It's a college campus, and there's a lot of white people there. And if I were a frickin' ESPN white employee that had to go there every day, I'd be pissed at what Smith said. First, Smith is really insecure about McAfee, obviously. McAfee never says anything about Smith. Smith can't wait. But him saying, it's so laughable, him saying that you have to be more polished as a black guy is so full of shit, so wrong, so ridiculous. It's laughable. It's just simply laughable. And everybody black and white that works there knows it's laughable.
It's the exact opposite, in fact. I sat through so many corporate meetings where black employees got away with saying things to management that you or I could never say out loud in a meeting in front of everyone. And, ESPN took this turn, and not just ESPN, but all of Disney. And it became this bring your whole self to work thing, which, by the way, Dan, I don't want you bringing your whole self to work. Well, because you do a show, but you know what I mean? This whole idea of like, you should be able to be yourself at work. No, you shouldn't. You're at work. You talk to your boss different than you talk to your buddies when you're sitting on the couch drinking beers. It's part of life. You talk to your grandma different than you talk to your golf buddies. I mean, we all do this. We all put on a different face when we go to work. We dress different when we go to work. This is not a uniquely black experience. And this is part of the problem is a lot of these complaints are, black employees feel uncomfortable because they can't speak the way they want to speak at work or this. And I'm always sitting here like, this is not a uniquely black experience. This is a human experience. We all have to adjust our behavior based on the environment, based on who we're talking to, based on the situation. We all do it. We all do it every day. I don't get it, man. I don't get it.
It's really funny. I just had this at church. It's different, but it's the same. So the preacher guy was up there, and I could tell, everybody's uncomfortable. And he says that he's a marriage counselor, and he was counseling a LGBT couple. And the hurt, the pain that they go through, blah, 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 blah.
You put the letters in the wrong order, Dan. You're canceled.
Yeah, I don't care. I do that on purpose. I don't care. I protest outside my house. I could give a shit. But so he's like, well, the pain, the hurt they go through. And my wife looks at me and goes, that is not a uniquely LGBTQ experience to go through pain and hardship in a wedding. I mean, do you want equal or do you want equal but special? And Smith is just so full of shit. Let me go to another thing. Why can't we, here in Indianapolis, Fox 59 News, if you are an African-American and you rob a store or a bank or murder, and we're looking for you, you're on the run. Fox 59 will not say the race of the person that is on the run because that is somehow harm. Wait, if you say white guy, that narrows it down. If you say black guy, that narrows it down. But we're not allowed to do that. Kansas City, we're not allowed to say what race these shooters are. Fuck that. Excuse me.
Yeah, and honestly, this back to the LGBT and the trans thing, when it comes to like ID at the airport and you're like, you can't ask their gender. I'm like, we're talking about identification. Do you not understand the purpose of identification? We need to be able to know that you are who you say you are, and we're eliminating all the things we can say about it. I mean, Dan, it's sad, but when the Kansas City parade shooting happened, and I was looking around scrolling social media, and I didn't see the race, I go, well, they're not white. Because if they were white, every tweet would say 2 white males fired into a crowd, but it doesn't, so we know they're not white.
That's so true. That is so true. It's like, all right, well, we know.
With shootings, this is how it works now. If the shooter's white, then it's white supremacy. If the shooter's not white, it's the guns. I mean, period. That's it. The media has a playbook. First things first, we determine the race of the shooter. As soon as we know that, now we can decide how to attack the issue.
Let me ask you a question, side question. Do you think, where are you at with like Mahomes and Kelsey and that Snead guy getting so hammered they could barely stand up at the parade? Are you anywhere with that one?
Yeah, look, I'm the last person to stand up and pass judgment on anyone for being a little bit overserved. But I do think there's a little bit of a responsibility on your part. Like, look, have fun, party it up, but you are still, at the end of the day, sort of at work, back to our earlier conversation about being at work. I mean, yes, it's a parade, yes, it's a party, but you're still representing the Chiefs, you're representing the NFL. There is a line, and if you're handing the Super Bowl trophy off to a random fan, I think it might be time to have a cup of coffee. That's all. Step aside, drink a cup of coffee, pound a bottle of water, and let's get back to partying.
I told a story after we won a national championship in '87. I missed the team bus the next day. Craig Sager and I had a chair throwing contest, wrought iron chairs. Craig Sager, rest his soul, was freakishly strong. He threw a wrought iron chair through an apartment window on the second floor, and I heard cops coming. I sprinted through the kitchen of this bar and hid under the bed at the Hilton. I was in the back of a squad car getting ready to be sent downtown. I mean, it was a bad night. What happens? I can get out of control back in the 80s, okay? I mean, what are you going to do?
Clearly.
That and when I got divorced, about 10 years ago when I got divorced, I was a bit of a womanizer. I admit it. I'm sorry. But when you look like this, what are you going to do? There's nothing you can do. Women are throwing themselves at you. You know what I mean? What can I say? Don't at me about it. Hey,
you're always trying to get me in trouble. You always loop me in
to
get me in trouble.
Because you're not afraid to speak. You're not afraid. You're not going to be like, well, I don't know, and give me some politically bullshit answer. So that's why I want you on more, and I keep begging, get Danny Z on so we could just have a chat. Look, when you do a show, and you know this, you look at the rundown, and sometimes the guest is like, crap. And other times it's like, this is going to be an easy 2 hours because I got Danny Z on. Name what?
Name the guest where you go,
No. It's not their fault.
You gotta flip the script.
It's not their fault, Danny Z. It's my fault. It's my issue. Saquon Barkley. I'm going to talk a little NFL. Yesterday I was talking to Craig Carton. He was on the show, and Craig is like, you know what? If I'm Barkley, I'm vindictive. I'm going to the Cowboys. Maybe. I don't know. What do you say? Where's he going to end up?
I don't know. Just after you just said the only thing I don't say is I don't know. I don't know where he's going to end up. I mean, we're in a weird space with running backs, and that's the whole thing. I mean, he's going to go where who's going to pay him. Question is, which team's going to pay him? Teams right now just don't value running backs highly, and that's why the franchise tag has become so popular with running backs, because it's really the best way. It's actually the system, and what the running backs are fighting against is the franchise tag system, because it does incentivize teams to franchise tag running backs. First of all, the value of the contract, I think it's like, what is it, $12 million or something? It's very reasonable. It's 1 year. So if they blow out a knee or get hurt, or you clearly see it, you can easily move on. So Barkley's going to go with whoever's going to give him at least 3 years. I mean, this is his 27-year-old season, or actually he's turned 27. So this next contract's going to take him through 30. So really, Dan, it just comes down to, I mean, the Cowboys showed with Ezekiel Elliott, like they didn't want to commit to Elliott any longer. They thought he was done, so they let him go. They have Tony Pollard. I can't see the Cowboys wanting Saquon Barkley unless, I mean, if you're talking vindictive and he's going to take a super deep discount to go to the Cowboys, I don't think that's true. Barkley knows he needs to get, he's got one contract left. He's got to make the most of it. So it really just comes down to, is there a team out there, maybe like the Baltimore Ravens? There's some rumors out there that they really want someone with quote unquote pedigree. You know, maybe that's a team willing to spend, but they got Lamar Jackson's contract kicking in. Any team with a quarterback that they're paying $40-50 million a year, they can't afford to give a running back $17-18 million against the salary cap. So the options for Saquon, like all running backs right now, are limited. Ultimately, my honest opinion is he ends up back with the Giants.
I always think that because of different things. I know you got to run. I just got a text. He's like presidents. He's got to be out by a certain time. You got to go.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate you as always.